The night was silent in the old junkyard. Rusted machines, broken cars, and piles of forgotten metal stood like sleeping giants under the pale moonlight. The human, a young man named Aaron, walked carefully between the heaps of scrap. His boots crunched on the gravel, and his flashlight flickered weakly as he searched for anything useful. Aaron was not rich. Every night he came to this junkyard to collect broken wires, old metal sheets, and sometimes small parts he could sell in the market. It was a hard life, but it was the only way he could survive. That night felt different. The air was heavy, almost like the junkyard itself was holding its breath. Aaron climbed over a mountain of rusted car doors and stopped to listen. For a moment, he thought he heard something strange, a sound that did not belong to the night. It was soft, weak, almost like crying. Aaron froze. His heart began to beat faster. No one ever came here at night. This place was dangerous. Broken glass, sharp steel, and sometimes wild dogs hid in the dark. But this sound was not from an animal. It was the sound of someone in pain. He raised his flashlight, pointing it at the shadows. "Hello?" he whispered. His voice echoed through the junkyard, but no one answered. The sound came again. A faint sob, a voice so small it almost disappeared, into the wind. Aaron followed the sound, stepping carefully between piles of broken machines. The crying led him to an old spaceship wreck, half buried under metal sheets and dirt. Its silver body was burned and scarred, like it had crashed long ago. People had stripped most of its parts for scrap, but still it lay there, broken and forgotten. The sound was coming from inside. Aaron hesitated. His hand trembled as he touched the cold metal door. "Is someone there?" he asked softly. "No," reply, only another sob, weaker than before. He pulled the door open with a loud screech. The smell of smoke and rust filled his nose. He stepped inside, shining his light into the dark cabin. At first he saw nothing, just broken seats, shattered glass, and wires hanging like vines. But then his eyes widened. In the corner, huddled, under a torn blanket, was a small figure, a child. Her skin was pale silver, glowing faintly in the dark. Her big round eyes shimmered like two tiny stars filled with tears. Beside her lay a woman, older, thinner, her face pale with pain. The woman's chest rose and fell slowly, like she was fighting to breathe. Aaron's breath caught in his throat. They were not human. The girl looked up at him with fear. Her little hands shook as she pulled the blanket tighter around her mother. She whispered something in a language Aaron could not understand, but the meaning was clear. She was begging him not to hurt them. Aaron stepped back, his mind racing. Aliens? Here? In a junkyard? He had heard stories of ships crashing, of creatures hunted by soldiers and taken away. But he never believed them. Until now. For a long moment, no one moved. The girl's glowing eyes never left him. She was scared, but there was also a spark of hope in her gaze, like she was waiting to see if this stranger would help or harm her. Aaron slowly lowered his flashlight so it would not blind them. I'm not going to hurt you," he said, quietly, though he wasn't sure if they understood. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small piece of bread he had saved for himself. Gently he placed it on the floor and pushed it toward the girl. The alien child hesitated, then reached out with shaking hands. She took the bread and quickly shared it with her mother, who ate weakly. The girl's eyes softened, and for the first time Aaron saw her tiny lips curve into a faint smile. But the moment of peace did not last long. From outside in the distance, Aaron heard a strange mechanical hum. He stiffened. It was the sound of patrol drones scanning the area. Their red lights often swept across the junkyard, searching for thieves or something else. The girl heard it too. Her eyes widened with terror. She clutched her mother's hand tightly and looked back at Aaron, silently pleading for help. Aaron's chest tightened. He knew now why they were hiding. Someone was hunting them. If the drones found them, it would not end well. He looked at the broken spaceship. then at the frightened child and her weak mother. He knew he had a choice. He could walk away, pretend he never saw them, and stay safe. Or he could do something dangerous, something that might change everything. The sound of the drones grew louder. Time was running out. Aaron whispered to himself, "What do I do now?" His flashlight flickered again, as if even the light was waiting for his decision. And, in that tense moment, the junkyard no longer felt like a place of dead machines. It felt alive, watching, waiting. Aaron took a deep breath. He knew he couldn't leave them here. The story of danger, trust, and survival had just begun. The junkyard was silent again, but Aaron's heart was not. It beat fast, like a hammer striking steel. The faint hum of drones moved in the distance, red lights cutting through the night sky. He stood frozen inside the broken spaceship, staring at the alien girl and her weak mother. They looked so fragile. The girl's silver skin glowed softly, her star-like eyes locked on him, full of fear. She did not speak his language, but her trembling hands and frightened face said enough. "Please, don't leave us." Aaron rubbed his forehead. He could not believe what was happening. All his life he had seen only broken machines and human faces in this junkyard. Now, before him, sat living proof that the stories were true. Aliens existed, and not monsters, not invaders, but just a girl and her mother, hungry and weak. He whispered to himself, "What do I do?" If he helped them, he could be in danger. If soldiers or hunters discovered him with aliens, they might take him away too. He would lose everything, his freedom, maybe even his life. But if he walked away, this girl and her mother would die here alone in the dark. The girl's eyes never left him. She held the piece of bread he had given her like it was treasure, like it was hope itself. And in that moment, Aaron felt something stir inside him, a small flame of responsibility. The sound of drones grew closer. Their searchlights swept across the junkyard, beams of red moving slowly between piles of metal. Aaron peeked through a crack in the broken ship. They were too close. He shut the door quietly and crouched beside the aliens. "Shh," he whispered, pressing a finger to his lips. He did not know if they understood, but the girl nodded quickly. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself and her mother, trying not to make a sound. The hum grew louder, then faded, as the patrol passed by another section of the yard. Aaron exhaled. They were safe, for now, but not for long. He sat on the cold floor, staring at the mother. She was pale, her breathing shallow. Her arms were wrapped protectively around her daughter, even in weakness. Aaron could see how much the girl depended on her, and how much the mother was trying to stay alive for her child. Aaron thought of his own childhood. He remembered his mother working long hours just to feed him. He remembered how she gave him her share of food when there wasn't enough. He remembered the way she smiled even when she was tired and sick. Looking at the alien mother, he felt the same energy. A mother's love, strong even in pain. Aaron clenched his fists. He couldn't leave them here. Not anymore. He stood up suddenly. The girl flinched, afraid he was leaving, but Aaron shook his head and pointed to the door. Then he pointed at them, then at his own chest, and said slowly, "With me. Safe." The girl blinked, not fully understanding, but when Aaron stretched out his hand, she hesitated only a second before placing her small glowing fingers in his. Her touch was cold, but it made his choice clear. He would help them. Aaron led them carefully out of the spaceship. He kept low, moving between piles of metal so the drones would not see them. The girl supported her weak mother as best as she could, but Aaron finally lifted the woman onto his back. She was light, too light, as if she had not eaten for weeks. Step by step they made their way across the junkyard. Every creak of metal, every crunch of gravel under his boots made Aaron's heart jump. If a drone turned this way, they would be caught. But somehow the night protected them. Finally, they reached a deeper corner of the junkyard where Aaron often worked. Here the piles of scrap metal stood higher like walls. In the middle was a small open space. This was where Aaron usually kept the better pieces he found stacked neatly for later. Now he looked at it differently. "This will do," he whispered. The alien sat down carefully, the mother leaning against an old machine. The girl looked around with wide eyes, confused but curious. Aaron looked at the junk around him: broken doors, rusted sheets, bent pipes. To most people this was trash, but to him it was building material. For the first time he didn't see a junkyard. He saw the beginning of a home. Aaron took a deep breath. He knew the choice he had made was dangerous. From this moment there was no going back. He was no longer just a scavenger. He was protector, builder, and maybe savior. But in his heart, he also knew something else. He had been alone for too long, living only for survival. Now, looking at the alien girl watching him with trust in her shining eyes, he felt something new. Purpose. He knelt down, smiled gently at her, and tapped the ground with his hand. "Safe," he said again. "Here, safe." The girl tilted her head, then gave a tiny nod. For the first time, her face relaxed, and her eyes sparkled, not with fear, but with hope. Aaron looked up at the towering piles of scrap around them. "All right," he whispered, "let's build you a home." And so in the shadows of rust and ruin, the true journey began. The night passed slowly in the junkyard. The air was cold, and the broken metal carried the chill like ice. Aaron did not sleep. He sat on the ground, watching the alien girl rest beside her weak mother. The girl's glowing eyes had finally closed, but her hand still held her mother's tightly, afraid to let go. Aaron leaned back against a pile of scrap, thinking. He had chosen to protect them, but protection meant more than just hiding. They needed food, water, warmth, and a safe place away from the eyes of drones and hunters. The wrecked spaceship could not protect them anymore. His eyes traveled across the junkyard. Broken doors, twisted pipes, sheets of iron, old tires, shattered wood. Most people only saw garbage here, but Aaron had worked with scrap all his life. To him, every piece had value, and now for the first time he was not collecting scrap to sell. He was going to build something with it. A home. The idea filled him with strange energy. He had built small shelters for himself before, simple shacks to rest in when nights grew long. But this would be different. It would not just be walls and a roof. It had to be strong, hidden, and safe enough for a mother and her child. As the first light of dawn touched the junkyard, Aaron stood and began. He searched carefully through the piles. He found an old van door still strong and dragged it across the gravel. He found wood from broken crates, bent but not useless. He found pieces of plastic that could keep the rain away. Slowly, a pile of materials grew in the corner of the junkyard where he had chosen their safe place. The alien girl woke and watched him with curious eyes. She tilted her head as Aaron struggled to lift a heavy sheet of rusted iron. Quietly, she stood up and walked to him. Without a word, she pressed her small, glowing hands against the metal. To Aaron's surprise, a soft energy passed through it, making it feel lighter in his arms. He looked at her in shock. She smiled shyly. Aaron whispered, "Thank you." He didn't know if she understood the words, but the way her eyes lit up told him she did. Together they carried the iron sheet to the corner. Aaron set it upright, leaning it against a pile of scrap to form the first wall. The girl's eyes sparkled, like she had just seen the beginning of a miracle. Hour by hour, Aaron worked. Sweat ran down his face as he hammered, bent, and tied pieces together with wire. The sound of metal echoed through the yard, but he moved carefully, always listening for drones. Every time he heard their distant hum, he froze, heart pounding until the sound faded again. The girl tried to help. She handed him small tools, carried lighter pieces, and even cleaned the space where her mother lay resting. Sometimes she would laugh softly when Aaron's clumsy hands dropped a tool, and though he could not understand her alien words, her laughter brought warmth into the cold junkyard. By afternoon, the shape of a small shelter began to appear. 4 uneven walls stood around them, made from car doors, iron sheets, and wooden planks. A roof of plastic and bent pipes covered the top. It was rough, crooked, and patched together. But it was more than the girl and her mother had before. Aaron stood back, wiping sweat from his forehead. "It's not much," he said quietly, "but it's something." The girl touched the wall gently with her fingers. For her, it was not just something. It was safety. It was hope. Aaron looked at the mother. She was still weak, but when she opened her eyes and saw the walls rising around her, a faint smile appeared on her pale face. Even without words, Aaron understood her gratitude. That night, as the cold wind howled, the three of them huddled inside the small shelter. The walls shook with the force of the wind, but they held. Aaron shared what little food he had left. The girl ate carefully, always making sure her mother had the first bite. In the dim light of a broken lantern, Aaron noticed something he had not seen before. The girl carried a small crystal, glowing faintly. She kept it close to her chest, hidden beneath the blanket. When Aaron's eyes met hers, she held it tighter, her expression serious. He realized then that this crystal was important, maybe the reason why they were hunted. He didn't ask about it. Not yet. But he knew that building walls was not enough. Danger was coming, and when it did, the shelter would need to protect more than just bodies. It would need to protect secrets. Outside, far away in the junkyard, the red eyes of drones scanned the night. Their hum grew louder, closer. Aaron tensed, listening. The girl's small hand slipped into his, trembling. The walls he built were thin, but at that moment they felt like the strongest fortress in the world, because inside them a bond was forming, between human and alien, stranger and child. Aaron whispered softly, "Don't worry, you're safe now." But in his heart, he knew the real test was only beginning. The junkyard was quiet again. The shelter Aaron built stood crooked but proud among the mountains of scrap. Inside, the dim light of a lantern flickered, casting soft shadows on the metal walls. The alien girl sat close to her mother, who was resting with her eyes closed. Aaron sat on the other side, repairing a piece of old cloth to make a blanket. He was tired, but for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. The girl kept watching him with her glowing eyes. They were bright, almost too bright for the darkness, like stars refusing to fade. She didn't speak his language, but her eyes spoke enough. Curiosity, trust, gratitude. After a while, she moved closer. With small hands, she pointed at the needle Aaron was using, tilting her head in question. Aaron chuckled softly. "Sewing," he said. He moved the needle through the cloth and showed her how the thread pulled the pieces together. "See? It makes two broken things into one." The girl's lips curved into a tiny smile. She touched the thread gently, then pointed at the metal walls of the shelter. Her eyes sparkled as if to say, "You did the same with us." Aaron felt a warmth in his chest. But then, something changed in her expression. Her smile faded. She looked around, making sure her mother was still asleep, and then turned back to Aaron with a serious face. Slowly, she reached under her blanket. Aaron leaned forward, confused. The girl pulled out a small object and held it carefully between her hands. It glowed faintly, brighter than her own skin. A crystal. It was no ordinary stone. Its light pulsed, like a heartbeat, soft waves of blue and white glowing in the dark. It seemed alive. Aaron's breath caught. "What is that?" he whispered, though he knew she couldn't understand his words. The girl held it close to her chest, protecting it. She whispered something in her alien tongue, soft, melodic, but filled with fear. Her eyes searched Aaron's face as if testing if she could trust him. Aaron raised his hands slowly. "It's okay," he said gently. "I won't take it." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Slowly, she extended the crystal toward him, letting him see it up close. Aaron leaned in, the glow reflected in his eyes. It wasn't just light. It carried warmth, almost like holding sunlight in the palm of a hand. The energy from it made the air hum softly, vibrating through his skin. But with the beauty came danger. He could feel it. This crystal was not just precious, it was powerful. And powerful things always attracted hunters. The girl pulled it back quickly and hid it again. Her face tightened with worry. She pointed toward the sky, then made a gesture like machines flying. Her voice trembled as she spoke alien words Aaron didn't understand, but he understood enough. They are coming for it. Aaron felt his stomach twist. He thought about the drones he had seen scanning the junkyard. He thought about the strange soldiers people whispered about, men who appeared whenever alien wrecks were found, taking everything and everyone. The mother stirred weakly, coughing. The girl hurried back to her side, holding her hand, whispering softly to comfort her. The crystal remained hidden under the blanket, but its glow still faintly shimmered through the fabric. Aaron leaned back, staring at the roof of the shelter. He had chosen to protect them, but now he understood the truth. This wasn't only about giving them food or walls to hide behind. This was about something much bigger, something dangerous. His eyes fell on the girl again. She looked back at him, with trust so deep it almost hurt. She had shown him her secret because she believed in him, and that trust was heavier than any burden Aaron had ever carried. That night, the wind howled outside, shaking the thin metal walls. Aaron couldn't sleep. He kept replaying everything in his head, the crying he heard in the spaceship, the fragile mother, the girl's glowing eyes, and now the crystal. Why had fate chosen him? Just a poor scavenger, a man who barely kept himself alive, now suddenly protector of two aliens carrying something powerful. In the silence, Aaron whispered to himself, "I don't know what's coming, but I won't let them take you." The girl, already half asleep, stirred and looked at him. She didn't understand his words, but she understood the feeling in his voice. She gave a small smile, then drifted off, clutching her mother's hand. Aaron sat there listening to their soft breaths. His tired body begged for rest, but his mind was sharp. He thought of ways to make the shelter stronger, ways to hide the crystal, ways to fight back if the hunters came. For the first time in his life, he was not thinking about himself. He was thinking about them, and in that moment something changed inside him. The bond between human and alien was no longer a fragile thread of chance. It was stronger now, tied together by trust, by secrets, and by the dangerous crystal glowing in the dark. Outside, the junkyard seemed still. But somewhere far away, machines moved. Red lights scanned the horizon, and hunters followed faint signals. The storm was coming, and Aaron knew their small shelter would soon face its first true test. The junkyard slept under a silver moon. The air was cold, the wind sharp, and the mountains of broken machines stood like silent giants. Inside the small shelter, Aaron tried to rest, but his eyes refused to close. Something felt wrong. The alien girl was asleep beside her mother, clutching the glowing crystal hidden under the blanket. Their soft breathing filled the small room. Aaron sat near the doorway, his ears sharp, listening to the night. Then he heard it. A hum, low at first, then stronger. A sound he knew too well. Drones. His heart jumped. He stood quickly, pressing his ear against the thin metal wall. The hum grew louder, mixed with faint mechanical clicks and voices carried on the wind. They were not far. Aaron peeked through a crack in the wall. His blood ran cold. Red searchlights swept across the junkyard. Tall shadows moved between the piles of metal, machines and men together. Armed figures wearing dark armor, their helmets glowing with red visors. They carried strange weapons, sharp and cold, scanning every corner. They were hunting. Aaron's chest tightened. They were too close. If the soldiers searched deeper, they would find the shelter. The girl stirred in her sleep, sensing his tension. Her glowing eyes opened. She looked at him, confused, then frightened when she too heard the hum outside. Aaron pressed a finger to his lips. "Shh." The girl nodded quickly, clutching her mother's hand. The mother, weak but awake, opened her eyes. She saw Aaron's face, then the red glow shining through the cracks of the shelter. Fear filled her gaze. The soldiers drew nearer. Aaron thought fast. He pulled old sheets of metal and broken tires, stacking them against the shelter wall to make it look like just another pile of junk. His hands shook, but he worked quickly, covering every sign of life. Outside, heavy boots crunched on gravel. Voices echoed. Strange, cold, mechanical. Signal strong. They were here. Search every wreck. Nothing leaves this yard. Aaron froze. They had tracked the crystal. The girl's eyes widened. She pulled the glowing stone tighter against her chest. Aaron crouched beside her, shaking his head. He whispered, "Hide it. Don't let them see." She understood. She tucked the crystal under her mother's arms and wrapped it in cloth until its glow disappeared. The footsteps grew louder. One of the armored men stopped right outside the shelter. His red visor glowed against the metal wall, scanning. Aaron held his breath. The girl held her mother. Not a sound, not a move. The man tapped the wall with his weapon. A hollow clang echoed. Aaron's heart pounded. Any second, they might break in. The soldier's voice growled through his helmet. "Only scrap here, move on." The footsteps faded. Aaron exhaled, his chest heavy with relief. But he knew it wasn't over. Through a crack, he saw the soldiers spread across the junkyard, using drones to scan every corner. Red beams of light cut through the piles, searching. The machines beeped as they read energy signals. "They're close," one soldier said. Aaron knew the shelter could not protect them for long. The crystal's energy was too strong. It would call the hunters again and again. The girl looked at him, fear in her glowing eyes, but also trust. She was asking him silently, "What do we do now?" Aaron swallowed hard. He didn't know. He was just a scavenger, a man who built small homes out of trash. How could he fight soldiers with weapons and machines? But when he looked at the girl and her weak mother, he felt the answer. He couldn't fight them, but he could protect. He could outsmart. He whispered, "Stay quiet. Stay hidden." Then he slipped out of the shelter. The night air hit his face as he crawled behind piles of broken cars. He grabbed pieces of metal and threw them far across the junkyard. The sound clattered loudly, echoing. Instantly the drones turned, scanning the noise. The soldiers followed, their red beams sweeping away from the shelter. Aaron used the chance to pile more junk over the shelter, disguising it deeper. He worked fast, moving silently, his hands cut by sharp edges but never stopping. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the soldiers regrouped. Signal faint. They moved. One growled. "Search continues tomorrow." One by one, the red lights faded into the distance. The hum of the drones grew weaker, then disappeared. Silence returned. Aaron staggered back into the shelter, blood on his hands from cuts, sweat dripping down his face. The girl rushed to him, her glowing eyes full of worry. She touched his arm, gently, as if asking if he was hurt. Aaron forced a tired smile. "I'm fine." The mother's lips moved weakly, whispering something Aaron couldn't understand. But her eyes told him everything. Gratitude. Aaron sank to the floor, exhausted. His heart still raced, but he had kept them safe for now. The girl curled up beside her mother, holding the crystal close again. Its glow was soft, but now Aaron saw it differently. Not just as danger, but as life. It was the reason they were hunted, yes, but it was also the reason they were still alive. Aaron closed his eyes. He knew this was only the beginning. The hunters would return. They would never stop. And so he thought of something bold, something dangerous. If they were to survive, they couldn't just hide. They would need a way to escape. The idea burned in his mind. A machine. A vehicle. Something built from scrap that could carry them away from this cursed junkyard. He opened his eyes, staring at the piles of metal around him. To others, it was trash. To him, it was hope. And from tomorrow, he would begin. The junkyard looked different at sunrise. Golden light touched the mountains of scrap, making broken metal shine like treasure. But for Aaron, there was no beauty in it. He knew the truth. Last night had been too close. The soldiers almost found them, and they would return. Inside the shelter, the alien girl and her mother still slept. The crystal's faint glow pulsed under the blanket, like a hidden heart beating in silence. Aaron sat outside staring at the horizon thinking. He whispered to himself, "We can't hide forever." The hunters were stronger, faster, and well-armed. If they stayed here, one mistake, one wrong move, and it would all be over. The shelter had protected them once, but it wouldn't hold again. They needed more. They needed escape. Aaron's eyes swept across the junkyard. Rusted cars, shattered machines, broken wings from old aircraft. To others, this was trash. But to him it was raw material. His mind began to shape an idea, wild and dangerous, a vehicle. Something strong enough to carry them away, far from this place, far from the hunters. His heart pounded with both fear and hope. Could it be done? Could a scavenger really build a way out of this prison of scrap? He looked back at the girl. She had saved him once, lightening heavy metal with her strange touch. She had trusted him with the secret of the crystal. If she believed in him, maybe he could believe in himself. Aaron stood. "I'll build it," he whispered. The work began. He started by searching the far corners of the junkyard. He dragged out old wheels from a rusted truck, bent but repairable. He found an engine half buried under iron sheets covered in dirt, its parts broken but not dead. He found fuel tanks, wires, and pipes, things most people would never touch. Piece by piece he pulled them together, building a pile of possibilities. The girl watched him curiously. At first she didn't understand, but when Aaron pointed at the engine, then at the horizon, and then made a gesture of flying with his arms, her eyes lit up. She smiled, nodding quickly. She understood. Escape. The mother, still weak, tried to sit up and whispered something in her alien tongue. Her voice was faint, but full of hope. Aaron didn't need words. He understood. She was giving him her blessing. Day after day, Aaron worked. His hands bled from sharp edges. His clothes grew dirty and torn. He hammered, welded, and tied parts together with wire. Sparks flew into the air as he cut and shaped old metal. The girl helped in small ways. She fetched tools, held parts steady, and sometimes used her strange energy to fuse pieces that Aaron couldn't. When she touched the engine, the dead machine seemed to hum again, like it wanted to live. Aaron couldn't believe it. "You're amazing," he whispered once. Though she didn't understand, still she smiled proudly, as if she knew what he meant. At night they sat together in the half-built machine. Aaron explained with hand movements how it would work, the wheels, the steering, the engine. The girl laughed softly at his gestures, but her glowing eyes were full of excitement. Even the mother, though weak, smiled when she saw the shape of the vehicle growing. It was not beautiful, not perfect, but it was hope made from steel and sweat. But danger never left. Every night red lights scanned the horizon. Drones flew low, searching. The soldiers grew closer. Aaron often had to stop his work and hide, pressing the girl and her mother into silence while machines passed overhead. The pressure grew heavier each day. Time was running out. One evening, as Aaron tightened the last bolts on the engine, the girl suddenly stiffened. Her glowing eyes turned toward the sky. She whispered something urgent, her voice trembling. Aaron followed her gaze. His heart dropped. Far away beyond the junkyard, he saw them, bright red lights in the clouds moving like a swarm. Not just a few drones this time, many, too many. The hunters had found the signal again. And this time they were coming in full force. Aaron's hands shook as he pulled the girl close. "It's not ready," he whispered. The vehicle was built, but not tested. The engine coughed, the wheels unsteady. It was a miracle it stood at all. But the girl's eyes were steady. She touched the crystal under her blanket, then placed her hand on the machine's engine. A faint glow spread through the metal, making it hum like a living heart. Aaron stared in disbelief. Could the crystal power it? The girl nodded firmly, her small face serious. For the first time, Aaron felt true hope. The scrap machine wasn't just a pile of metal anymore. With her, with the crystal, it could fly, or at least run fast enough to escape. He turned to the mother. She was pale, but her eyes burned with silent strength. She nodded once. Aaron gritted his teeth. Then we leave tonight. As the red swarm drew closer, Aaron worked faster than ever. He poured the last drops of fuel, tightened the last bolts, and tested the wheels. The engine rattled and coughed, but with the girl's touch it steadied, glowing faintly with strange energy. The vehicle was far from perfect. It was ugly, rough, and patched together with junk. But to Aaron, it was beautiful, because it was hope. He looked at the girl and her mother sitting inside, their glowing eyes fixed on him with trust. He climbed into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel. His heart thundered in his chest. The hum of drones grew louder, filling the night sky. Red lights spread across the junkyard like fire. Aaron pressed his foot down. The engine roared too. Life, sparks flying. The escape had begun. The junkyard shook with noise. Engines roared in the distance, and the red swarm of drones filled the night sky like a storm of fireflies. Their beams of light scanned every corner of the yard, sharp and merciless. The hunters had arrived in full force, an army of machines and armored men. Inside the scrap-built vehicle, Aaron gripped the wheel tightly. His knuckles turned white. The alien girl sat beside him, holding the crystal in her small hands, its glow spreading through the machine like veins of light. Her mother lay weak in the back, her breathing heavy but steady. Aaron's heart raced. He whispered to himself, "This has to work. Please, work." He slammed his foot down. The engine roared to life, coughing, then growling with strange energy. The vehicle trembled, then rolled forward, tires screeching on the gravel. Sparks flew as loose parts rattled, but the machine moved, faster and faster. The hunters noticed. "Target found," a voice boomed through the night. Red beams locked on the vehicle. Drones swarmed closer, buzzing like angry wasps. Soldiers raised their weapons, firing bolts of energy that cut through the junkyard, leaving glowing scars on metal piles. Aaron swerved hard, steering the vehicle between towers of scrap. Broken car doors and twisted pipes collapsed behind them, slowing some of the drones. The girl held the crystal tighter, and the engine screamed louder, glowing brighter, pushing the vehicle forward with unnatural strength. Bullets of light zipped past them, striking the ground, exploding in bursts of fire. The mother gasped weakly, holding her daughter's hand. The girl's eyes glowed brighter, filled not with fear now, but determination. Aaron shouted over the chaos, "Hold on!" The vehicle burst through a wall of stacked tires, crashing onto an open path. The drones followed, their red lights painting the night with danger. Soldiers jumped onto smaller vehicles, chasing them through the maze of junk. Aaron's mind raced. He knew the junkyard better than anyone. Every path, every dead end, every hidden slope. If he could outsmart them, maybe they had a chance. Turned sharply into a narrow passage, walls of scrap towering on both sides. The hunters followed, their drones squeezing through. "Now!" Aaron shouted. The girl pressed the crystal to the engine. A blast of energy surged through the vehicle. It leapt forward with a roar, faster than before. The sudden speed caused the walls of scrap to collapse behind them, burying some of the chasing soldiers under metal and fire. But the swarm was too many. More drones poured in from above. Red beams struck the vehicle, burning holes into the sides. Aaron gritted his teeth, steering wildly to dodge. His hands were cut, his body shaken, but he refused to stop. The girl screamed, pointing ahead. A ramp, an old broken bridge of metal leaning high against a pile. Aaron understood. If they could launch from it, maybe they could break free of the junkyard walls. He tightened his grip. "Hold tight." The vehicle sped toward the ramp. Drones fired from behind. Soldiers shouted. The air filled with heat and fire. The girl closed her eyes, clutching the crystal to her chest. The mother whispered faintly as if praying. The wheels hit the ramp. The vehicle climbed upward, shaking violently. Sparks flew, metal groaned, the engine screamed. Then they launched. For a moment, time slowed. The world seemed silent. The junkyard lay below like a sea of broken dreams, the swarm of hunters chasing from every side. But above, the stars waited. The crystal's glow burst like a sun. The vehicle soared higher than it should, lifted not just by steel and fuel, but by the strange alien power humming through its heart. The hunters fired, but their shots missed. The swarm of drones swirled below, too late, too slow. The vehicle crashed down on the far side of the junkyard wall, smashing into the ground, rolling hard but staying together. Metal bent, glass shattered. Aaron's body shook with pain. But they were out. He coughed, forcing the machine forward again. The engine rattled, nearly dying, until the girl placed the crystal back inside it. The glow returned, steady and strong. They kept moving farther and farther from the junkyard. Behind them, the red swarm grew smaller, their lights fading in the distance. The hunters shouted, but their voices grew weak. They were free. For the first time, silence filled the night. Only the sound of the engine and the soft breath of the mother remained. Aaron slowed the vehicle, his arms trembling, his chest burning, but a smile spread across his face. He looked at the girl. She was still clutching the crystal, but now her eyes were wet with tears, not of fear, but of relief. She met his gaze, then reached out and held his hand. Aaron squeezed back. "We made it," he whispered. The mother, though weak, lifted her head. She spoke softly in her alien language, her voice gentle. Aaron didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Gratitude, hope, family. The night sky stretched. Above them, endless and full of stars. Somewhere out there, danger still waited. But for now, they had escaped. For now, they were safe. Aaron looked at the machine he had built from trash. Ugly, broken, barely holding together. But it had carried them out of hell. And as he stared at the girl and her mother, he realized something. He had not only built a shelter, not only a vehicle, he had built a future. And for the first time in his life, Aaron felt like he belonged to something bigger than himself. From junk, he had built not just a home, but a family.